Hello and welcome. This is Rasheem, the host of The Counter Narrative. Thank you all so much for joining tonight, today, whenever you happen to watch this video. If you're watching live, just thank you for being here. Tonight's episode is called Teaching in a Crisis. We're talking with two professional teachers, one in higher education level and one who teaches in elementary middle level. Both in the state of Maryland, to hear about some of their lived experiences around teaching in this crisis that we're currently experiencing with the pandemic taking place. I am going to start by doing a bit of letting them introduce themselves in a way. They're going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead and go to Ms. Forbes first. And Ms. Forbes, if you could just share with the people, what grade do you teach and what subjects do you teach?
Good evening, everyone. I am currently teaching pre-K, but I have taught from pre-K up to third grade in my educational career. And currently, like I said, I'm teaching pre-K in the urban city in Baltimore. I've been doing it for approximately between 18 to 20 years. I enjoy it. It is a passion. It is all consuming at times, but it's something that is enjoyable. But it has been a challenge with the pandemic occurring and having to shift mindsets. I am very much a people person. I enjoy the personal experience. I am a touchy-feely person per se. And so this has been a challenge for me connecting using the internet and using technology. I found it difficult to engage my parents. As you know, with pre-K students, they are younger. They're up to 4 and they're transitioning to becoming 5-year-old. And so they need the parents' help in navigating the system that we're using. We were using Google Classroom or whatever media platform that we were using. So it was challenging. One of the other challenges that I did not anticipate, because a lot of my parents are young. They're in their early 20s, and I have a daughter who that's all she does is live with her telephone. And so I often tease her that that technology is not God, like she sleeps with it. So I did not see the issue of them being able to use the telephone or the tablet or a laptop to be able to come on and to connect or to log in. And so that was a challenge. Another challenge that I didn't see was my students or the parents not having technology. So that was a big factor. I thought that the fact that we could use Google Classroom and you could use it on your telephone would help ease the transition and would have my children come and be a part of the classroom. So I really expected a lot of people there. But there were issues with using the telephone. Another thing that I did not consider is possibly that some of my parents' telephones were issued via government and did not have it was not necessarily the smartest smartphone to be used. So that was an issue. I know that I started out as a result of that, I was leery about coming out. And as you, Rasheem, can attest, I started doing the food drive. And what was the primary reason for me coming and doing the food drive was to make a connection with my parents and with my students. Because I wanted 100% participation, and that wasn't happening. And so using Google Classroom, using ClassTag, which was another media form that I used prior to the pandemic. I was using group texting to try to get my parents and to get all of my students there. So some parents were possibly maybe embarrassed a little bit of maybe not knowing how to use the technology. And I really tried to make it for them to feel comfortable, because I'm going to be transparent live on Facebook, is that I'm not really a technological person. I shy away from it. Of course, I know how to text, and I know how to send emails and the basic things, but I wasn't able to increase my knowledge by teaching them how to connect and being able to help them. And I would call, one of the challenge was is I didn't know when the day started and when the day ended. I was like 360 trying. If my parents text me at 10 o'clock and I'm up, I was texting back. So that was another challenge. When you work in education, it's always, the work never stops. My mother is an educator, my aunt is an educator, and that's one thing you just finally have to say you have to have a stopping point, because this is a beast that is always one more thing that you can do. And so you have to learn how to balance home life and work life. And initially, I wasn't balancing it that well, because there were no walls. Home was office, and we couldn't go out. So I was like, I even lost like the time, what day it was. I have to be transparent. I'm like, where am I? So I'm one who likes to prepare, and so to get my assignments up in order. And because I was doing them all hours, I was like, what day am I on? One time I almost put up Wednesday's assignment and it was Monday's assignment. So it was getting adjusted to that. And one way that I got myself and got my routine and my clock was I had to step outside. Listening to the news 24/7 with all the negativity and the fear, I embraced it. And that's one thing that prior to it that I didn't do. I didn't watch news at 11 o'clock because I did not want it to go into my psyche. Right. And with it being on 24/7, all you heard was about the pandemic, and I embraced it. And so I had a neighbor even came down and said, Forbes, I haven't seen you. And we watched Snap as light, well, it may not be light, but as entertainment. And so she said, I had to make sure, she was joking, that your husband, nothing happened to you because I hadn't seen you. And I said, you know what, thank you for checking on me. But I was really fearful and got in that mindset. And then as a result of that, with her telling me that, then I said, come on, let's take a walk around the block. Let's engage with my neighbors. Right. 6 feet apart. And so then that gave me that sense of community again. It gave me that sense of touch, even though I can't hug and embrace you. You are in the same space that I am and not in the camera.
Right. I want to take a deeper dive into more of the things that you're talking about. I want to bring in Dr. Wilburn so that we can go ahead and introduce her, but I definitely want to explore some of the other things that you were saying around wanting to have that sense of touch again, wanting to connect, the challenges that you had with the technology, and then interacting with parents who have challenges with the technology, and how that, just impacted the whole experience. Also want to let you know that someone in the chat, Gary Mullen and Ty said, hi, Miss Forbes.
Hello.
Wanted you to know that they said hello. And Dr. Wilburn, if you can for us, tell us what is it that you teach? At what level do you teach it? How long have you been teaching? And how did you come to the teaching profession?
Yes. So I've been teaching at Morgan now for 27 years in the School of Social Work, and I've taught at all 3 levels. I primarily teach doctoral students now. I often will teach a MSW level class as well, either a practice class or a human behavior class at the master's level. But my primary assignment is to the PhD program. So I work with doctoral students, supervising dissertations. I teach theory, and then I also teach a dissertation prep course. This spring, I only had a doctoral course, and there were 4 students in my class. And I had though. So that's what I was doing at my university. I also am part of a charter school in DC that I do a little bit of consulting with. So I was involved with them a little bit this semester and had to help with some of the transition of clinical work with students that have IEPs, transitioning how to do that work in an online kind of a situation. So I was, I think, helpful to my charter school in that way. I was sitting here listening because it's so funny. My experience is quite the opposite because of several things. One is, I'm sorry, is that what, do you want me to answer the okay. 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 Because the first thing is that because I teach doctoral students, I'm used to having some support around me. I usually have at least a graduate assistant. Then my doctoral students whose dissertations I'm chairing will often help me with stuff. I am very into technology, even though I don't know it well myself. I lean into my doctoral students to help me and support me around doing stuff that I need to do online, which is a great resource to have that I'm very appreciative of because I'm aware that everybody doesn't have that resource. And then the other thing that people have found, people who think they know me well have found interesting to know that I actually am quite an introvert.
Oh.
People think I'm an extrovert because I've been forced into being extroverted in order to, you know, really in order to build my career, in order to be a professional social worker, in order to model those kinds of skills. I've had to learn how to be an extrovert, but my real comfort space is really, my home is my sanctuary. And so I have actually thrived in this environment. And I am learning how to be happy and okay about that, even though I know others have struggled in this space. This has been great for me. The thing that has been the most challenging, I would say, even though there are some pieces about it that are just challenging in general, and I don't think it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, but the thing that has been most challenging for me in terms of like negotiating workspace and work stuff or whatever is having all the extroverts now in what is somewhat of an introverted space. So because I consider online kind of stuff to be kind of very introverted because people can do things that they want to do that, and they don't have to necessarily have the touchy-feely. But now we're being bombarded with touchy-feely people in an introverted space. So
yeah, that's me.
because touchy-feely people, like, they want to be, I mean, those who figured out that the only way I can engage is if I go ahead and do this Zoom thing, or I'll go ahead and do this social media thing. So now they're doing it all the time. It's like, it don't take all of that. Like a 3-hour meeting face to face, can you break that down to a 1-hour meeting online?
Well, I can concur with
like,
that.
We don't really need all of that in a you know, in an online space. So that's the part I have found to be the most stressful, that I feel like now some of the spaces that I considered very sacred and very personal, where I was able to build some boundaries, now it's like, get out of this space. I want to be in here, you know, by myself. And so that's been the thing I think that's been the most stressful for me.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because I don't know that it's something that a lot of people have. It's probably something that folks have thought about, but I don't know the degree to which they have actually like said it. Like, because it is kind of an introverted space. Like, you're still in your home. And no one, even if I might interact with you for 3 hours in person, I am not going to want to sit in front of my screen for
not at all. And here's what you can do when you at home. You can do this. And you can get up and walk around and still do stuff, right. You know.
Right. No, that is an advantage, but I find that I am the opposite. So where I'm a talking in your face person, when we come online, I have stopped talking, you know. I am like silent. So it is interesting that you said that, because then it brought to me like, oh, okay, I'm just basically sitting and listening to people, not always adding or doing my talking, because everybody that works with me is like, Forbes, you can talk. And I do realize that. But I have one coworker said, this is the first time that I heard you summarize something in 2 minutes or 30 seconds or less. Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm just, learning this thing. So I'm going to let everybody else talk, and I'm just going to sit and listen.
Yeah, I can see how the being in a different space has the different effects. I want to take the time to introduce Ms. Jameer Foster. Just share with us what grade you teach, what subject you teach, how long have you been teaching, and what brought you to your profession. And then we're going to get into more of the nitty-gritty around teaching in this crisis. But first, let's introduce yourself so we can get to know you.
Okay. So I'm Jameer Foster, and I have been teaching for about 2.5 years. I teach grade 4, and what got me into this profession, believe it or not, is the kids. I fell in love with the kids. I was a secretary for some years, and with secretaries, we interact a lot with the kids and we support the teachers. But I mean, I work in Baltimore City, and those kids really grabbed a hold to my heart. Like, and in choosing my profession now as a teacher, really, the kids have really shaped that, because I felt that there was a need, and I felt like I could do a part with helping them achieve and just be great. So that's why I chose what I chose.
Awesome. So while you're engaged, I'd like to hear the first day that you got the news that the schools were closing because of COVID. Can you tell me a little bit about that day, your thought process? What was it that you needed to get ready for? Like, how did you get ready?
Okay, so I'm gonna just tell you the real. Okay,
keep it real. That's right. Keep it real. Keep it real.
That's my girl Forbes on it. So, let me tell you the real. So when I found out that, okay, so they was announcing or whatever, we was in our PD. We had a PD that day. It was a Friday. We had a PD. So we conducted school like regular. So I'm hearing rumors before I get the real news. So I'm like, what is going on? They talking about this thing, it's a COVID disease, this or that. So I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. We know it's real when it hits the school system. So when the principal was like, yeah, well, we're closed, and then I hear a message from the governor saying it was closed. I was like, wow. Like, is this really real? And I was like,
it was surreal.
Yeah, it was like, is this not real? So I said, okay, first of all, great vacation, great break. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to have me a good time or whatever. And so I was like, this will be a vacation of rest, because it was unexpected. As teachers, you plan your vacations during your breaks.
Mm-hmm.
or during your summertime. So you like, it's all good, whatever. So this was unexpected, and I didn't plan a vacation for this time. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to rest. I'm going to do things that I need to do in my personal life or whatever, give some attention to that area. So then when it was extended, I was like, oh my God, is this really real? Is this the last days? Like, I might need to go to pray. Like, something's going on. Like, like, what's going on? And
right.
It was like extended. And I was like, oh my God. And then I'm seeing, so I live in PG County. So Prince George's County school systems was like, they wasn't giving them like the heads up. Like, okay, we're going to extend, the break for longer. They was waiting longer. So I got more information from Baltimore City, and then I go to my ex co-workers, because I used to work in Prince George's County too, and they're like, yeah, we're still waiting to hear, and we're going to be extended another week or whatever like that. So I'm just like, wow, I don't know, like what's going on? So from that point on, after like hearing that, and then hearing the news, as far as like listening to the news and people passing away and stuff like that, it was just like, wow, like it just felt like the world is it coming to an end, or depending on what your religion is. Like, I was thinking, is this the last days or whatever? And then when I heard from administration, it was like, okay, we got a plan for, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do school online.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, I felt like a new teacher again.
Right.
And it kind of was like a little slap in the face, because it was just like, hey, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
I got to learn something new again, learn how to do this and that and stuff. I'm pretty sure even teachers who have been teaching for years,
Mm-hmm.
now you're changing your platform from leaving a physical classroom to online. These are the standards you need to follow, because Tinch Tillman, they got standards for everything. They got rules for everything. So it's not like, oh, you get on Zoom, or you get on Google Classroom or Blackboard, and then you teach your lesson and then you're done. No, there are guidelines. So it was just like, hey, here I go again, learning things over again or whatever like that. But one thing that really motivated me through all that was the kids. I mean, I've never had kids FaceTiming me, texting me, calling me. There was no set boundaries of the day. It was no 7:45 to 3:30 or 2:30. It was like, accommodations, not knowing what this parent is going through, parents working in COVID, right? I'm in my home. I'm nervous in my home. Like, okay, we got COVID-19 going on. Let me bleach down the whole house. Yeah. And then I'm talking to this parent who has to go to work every day because it's more important to feed her child. You know what I'm saying? It was like I had to accommodate as a human being, because it was like, good, I have at least the luxury of being able to work inside my home versus talking to these parents, and they out here working because they need the hours and they need to keep a roof over their child's head, or at least food in the fridge to feed their kids. So I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of emotions I felt during this time. Even still now, it's a lot of emotions, because it's just like, there's frustration with learning, things that we need to do to still have our kids learn, but as well as the service piece to our community, making sure that these kids at least have the necessities, eating, shelter, being able to do what they need to do to actually, survive in this time.
In a way to express themselves safely.
Yeah.
Is another concern. And it was a wide array or gamut of emotions that, all of us was feeling. I do have to piggyback, Ms. Foster, what you're saying, and instantly being seasoned teachers and feeling like, oh, wow, this is something new. I had to learn this. And it was overwhelming initially, but I have to keep stuff on a positive note and have to say that in our darkest times, that's when light shines through. And so as a result of this, I am a little bit more proficient with, technology. I am a little bit more in tune to the needs of my parents. Ms. Foster said something like the same thing, that she agreed. We didn't know when day started and when night. It was revolving, and having parents call and hearing some of the challenges that they had to overcome because that's not my experience, I did not realize, the challenges that they were facing. So I feel I had like 9 strong students. Now I had a class of 18, and I had 9 students who I can say engaged the majority of the time. I had 3 who never missed a live class. As I wanted to help my parents, and like I said to you before, Rasheem, that was the reason of coming down to the center, to the church and helping. And then one of my parents' guardians was a grandmother. And I was talking to her. She was like, Miss Forbes, I don't know how to do this. And I was like, okay, most of our students are in walking distance. So that's when it clicked. Okay, come there. Initially, it wasn't for me to serve, although I don't mind serving wherever I'm needed. I think most people who know me, I will lend an offering hand support. Where do you want me? But it was my children's needs and my parents' needs that drove me out of my house. And as a result, we stepped into her home. My coworker, I have to give her out, Miss Radowski, my personal partner. She went with me. We walked into my parents' home and we showed them how to use the technology. And from that point, once she had it and was like, oh, she hit the ground running, and that student didn't lose any more time. So that was a great success. Another parent, I was disappointed that each week I told my parents to come and meet me, and they didn't, because there is that drive to do well, and I'm trying to break every barrier that I know to make it easier for them. One parent was having children, was giving birth, and one of the issues that I'm not going to say a lot, but some of what our community was facing is not having internet, having to use their hotspot, or not having strong internet. And so that was another challenge that was speaking with my parents that I found out. And I was willing to drive to that person's house. But when they told me they were in Dundalk, I was like, okay, I don't know the Dundalk area that well. She was in the hospital. I am a woman. I was like, I will come if you are there, but I don't necessarily want to, if I didn't have anybody going with me to meet an unknown variant.
I hear it all the way.
So I said, okay, I'm going to let that one go. But one of the things that I am doing is, because we are still going on with the volunteering for the next 5 weeks. So even though we are officially ending on Monday, I am telling my parents now, I'm providing you with a summer packet. And you can get this summer packet from me live. We're using the word live, but in person. Right. So come on down. It's available, and you can get this summer packet from me for 5 weeks, because I am going to be there. And then there is also the opportunity, as each week come, if you have a problem or something that you don't understand. Most of my parents have my cell phone. They can call me, or if they're feeling shy, then they can come and meet me there one-on-one. So I am sending that out, and we're putting it out in the air. So hopefully the community in my class will latch onto that and do that, so they can help them be successful for kindergarten, because our kindergarten teachers are waiting for their new students, and they want them on grade level. So, whatever I can do to help.
No, from both you, Ms. Forbes, as well as Ms. Foster, I'm hearing so much more beyond the teaching that you are doing. You are accommodating you are accommodating parents, you are extending boundaries, your availability has increased. It's not just this time to this time when I'm on the campus, even though things are overwhelming and you're just learning some technology. The process of going, this is the beauty of community schools, and this is the beauty of folks interacting with people who not just know how to teach, but I love and I know my people, and I will come to your house and I will help you set this up, because I know if I don't, there's a digital divide, and we don't want our children to fall behind. And I love what you said too, Ms. Forbes, about breaking barriers, because that's some of the work too. It's not just 1 + 1 is 2. This color is that color. This is this
Yeah, they had to feel comfortable in letting their vulnerabilities, sharing their vulnerabilities with me.
Right.
And so I was really able to connect with the grandparent, because I said, let me tell you something, sweetie. I get it, because someone had to show me. So Radowski, which is, we call each other by our last names, she helped. It was Miss Gifford, who was proficient in technology, and it was the community of co-workers, helping. We divide ourselves in teams by grade level. So the teams came together to support one another. And so as I become proficient, as the saying is, let one teach one, and that's how we have to do. So I became the village, another part of the village, in helping a parent overcome, a challenge or diversity. Because the one thing that is another challenge is not only, and I know this for Miss Foster, because we are co-workers, but we're also mothers. And so now I am 360 pouring in to my community, to my students.
Right.
And guess what? I have a teenager.
Right. Before you get into that, because I definitely want us to have that, that's a essential part of the conversation, especially when we're talking about boundaries and how much you're giving of yourself, and you both are giving so much. I want to switch over to Dr. Wilburn, and I have the same question for you about the day that the campus shut down. What was that transition period like? I know you interact with much older students, but I can't even imagine still for some folks, like what was that day like and what happened?
So the thing that I recall is that we didn't skip a beat in terms of missing time, because there was already, so we already teach some online courses at the university. So they just kind of really just went full force into that. So we didn't miss time. Everybody just was asked to try to shift everything online. The thing that I found the most interesting is, because I'm a social worker, like all of my doctoral students are essential employees. So that was the thing that was a real challenge. And so I found myself shifting gears a little bit from being their professor to, in some ways, being their therapist, because a lot of their other instructors were not very empathetic to the fact that they were still working and trying to figure all of that out. At the same time, they were still engaging in school. And then that was just a real challenge for them and stressful for them. And so what I decided to do was to pull back on some of my expectations in terms of, I cut out an assignment, I gave them more time to complete things. I tried not to do anything that was going to be, more stressful for them, because I mean, literally, we're talking about students they're at the end of their 2 years in a doctoral program in terms of coursework. I already know that they have capacity and that they can do the work. And so for me, it didn't make sense to push them to stay on the same timeline, whereas some of their other instructors were still, they did that. And I get what from their other instructors' perspective, I understand, because it's like, this is gonna be your life 24/7 for the rest of your life. You're gonna be dealing with crisis and situations and whatever. But I still think that even though that is true, you still got to have some spaces in your life where that isn't true.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so for me, it was important to be a space where that wasn't true. Like, I don't want to make this part of your crisis. I don't want to make this part of something that you've got to try to manage at the same time. I also had actually 2 things very personal that happened to me during this time. Is it okay for me to talk about that now?
Yeah,
or do you want
go ahead. Wait? You could go ahead and talk about it. Then I'm gonna.
Yeah. So because my professional stuff to me was not as much of a crisis. I mean, things kind of didn't skip a beat. It just went online. it wasn't a problem for me because I've taught online. And so it worked. It was okay. In my personal life, my mom actually was diagnosed with lung cancer and had cancer surgery like right at the beginning of the pandemic. And interesting enough, my mom had been very, very sick in December, and now even her doctors believed that she had the coronavirus, but they didn't know what it was. And because they were trying to figure out what was wrong with her because she was so sick, they found the nodules on her lungs that was cancerous. So if my mother had not been very sick and they weren't trying to figure out what was wrong with her, they would not have discovered cancer like very, very early. They were able to remove those nodules off of her lungs and she's cancer free. So praise God that happened. But then a few weeks after that, my dad actually had a massive heart attack and died. And so I was dealing with personal stuff in this time that was in some ways more stressful than the professional stuff, because the professional stuff I felt like was more manageable. The personal stuff, I was there for my mom. I came back home. My mom and my mother and my biological father had never been married. They weren't together. I was there for my mother's surgery, came back. And because the virus had been, by the time my father passed away, there were no funerals, no anything. So I didn't go back home. He was cremated. That's going to be something for me personally that's I'll always remember that about this pandemic, that it created a situation where I was unable to have closure with my dad. And that probably will be I'm hoping, because Lord knows how much longer this is going to go on and you never know what else could happen. But so far, that's been probably the most difficult thing for me during all of this.
So it's, with all of that, with all of the collective trauma that everyone is experiencing, it's like each one of us are serving other people, and it makes me wonder about self-care. So I want to get to a point too where we have a conversation around self-care, because from what I hear from each and every one of you, you are super caring, super helpful, super supportive, accommodating to parents, to students, not holding them to unreasonable timelines, which is definitely appreciated.
That's appreciated.
Right? I want to get back to Miss Foster. And one of the questions that was asked in the chat, actually, before I ask you this question, Ms. Forbes, Lakeisha Jordan in the chat said she also had a teacher come to her house and help her child. So it's something that she appreciated. Edwin Perez says, good evening. Asia says, that's all so hard. Sheesh, I'm so sorry. The question that Ty put in here, which I think is a really good one to ask, is if this continues into the fall, what changes need to happen to make this more manageable?
Well, I would say I think it's all about mindset. Because I feel like mindset wise, I'm already like preparing myself that this may go down in the fall as far as school online. And I guess I'm also preparing myself in a way of as a parent, because the crazy thing is, as I was teaching online, I had a first grader who was also learning online too. So there was frustrations on that part as far as being a parent. And don't get me wrong, I'm very computer efficient. But it wasn't so much about the computer efficiency, it was about the time. Where do I draw the line as giving that support to my now coming second grader to do my part as a parent to support her in practicing certain things she struggles in following up? Because in reality, as a teacher, you teach, you give that support in the classroom. But if your child is a student who cannot grasp quickly, it's going to come from, as a parent, that reinforcement in the home. So me knowing that and being aware of that, as far as being a teacher and a parent, I try to designate that time for my student or for my child, as far as supporting her, because she's very like, oh, she wants to do good. She cares about, being good in school and also being, shooting for those high grades and different things like that,
She sure does. She wants to be good. I remember I would interact with her and she would ask me just that. She said, was I good, Miss Rasheem? Was I good?
Over the top. You know what I'm saying? So
that's because that's some home accountability. She doesn't want mommy to be upset.
Yes, emotional. She's very emotional. So with me, that is a lot for me, because I'm just like, hold on, wait, get over it. Look, work on the problem, get it done. But she's in second grade. She needs that support. She's not in college, so it's like I have to be there as the mother. You know what I mean? And then I also have my students who don't have that parental support.
Right.
So me as a mother wants to be there for them. You know what I mean? So then it's like, where do you draw the line? Do I take my feelings out? And I say, hey, this is me as a teacher. This is as much as I can go for you, and let that go and draw the line there? Or do I be human and try to accommodate both sides? You know what I mean? It's just, it's a hard thing. And that is going to be my struggle. That is going to be my struggle.
With that being said, because I do want to get into the mother aspect of it. And this is like,
can I please say something on that?
On the mother piece?
On that, which Foster is going through, because with my daughter, I poured so much into the children that I taught that my child, in some essence, was left behind. Education was not my first career. My mother, as I stated earlier, was an educator, and the same thing that I inadvertently did to my daughter, that's what my mother did with me. Because she poured in, because education is a beast that just demands a whole lot of you. And because you are caring, you want to do that. But I want you to learn from me, Foster, that it is important that there be balance, because there are some side effects that I'm now having to deal with because I did not see that. And because I was someone else's village, and because I was pouring in, I was expecting others to pour into her. She's a child that does well academically, but there were some social pieces that I missed because I was pouring in to, into other children. So I would just encourage you to be balanced.
Can I add something to that?
And cut it off and pour into your child as well. That's all. Yes, Dr.
Can I add something to that? So as a professional social worker and a social work professor, like one of the things that I always teach my students, and I am who I try to be, and I try to be this literally, is everything that I teach others. Because here's what I don't want to happen. I don't want to show up in the world being opposite of who I say that I am. So one of the things that I teach my students, because if you're a teacher, if you're a social worker, if you're in any kind of helping profession, you are naturally a giver. That is who you are. That is absolutely who you are. But you have to take care of yourself first. It's that whole thing where you get on the plane and they say if that thing drops down, because we can't breathe up in here.
Exactly. Right.
You put that thing on yourself first, not your child, not whoever's sitting there. It's on you first. And so that's the thing that I always teach, my students: take care of you, take care of your home first. And here's the other thing: for as much as we can help a whole lot of kids, we cannot rescue them from their own families. We cannot rescue them from their own mamas and daddies. I mean, some of the things that we do may result in looking like that happened, but the reality is we cannot. So all we can do is do as much as we can to give them the knowledge, values, the skills. Any parents that we have access to give them the knowledge, values, and the skills. But at the end of the day, it's not on us. We do the best that we can. And then at whatever time that is, you do have to shut it off, because your own children do need you. You know, your own husbands, wives, whatever, everybody else needs us too. And so, and there's no guilt in that. None at all, Miss Foster, because I see you. I see your face. I see your face. There's no guilt in that. We do the best that we can to help others. But at the end of the day, we are our own number one. I'm sorry, Dr.
No, I'm glad you did that, because
Dr. Rasheem.
I wasn't balanced, and so I want to pay for it. You know, when you learn experience, not to allow somebody else to go down the rabbit hole, for lack of a better word, that you have, when you can do something about it. And so I do really want to encourage you, Foster, and you know, you're doing an excellent job, but to be balanced so that, you know, as I say, if you don't pay it forward at the front end, you pay it at the back end, and the back end is more costly than the front end. And it was some things that I wish that I had paid attention to. But meeting deadlines, doing this, being superwoman, as you know, as parents can be, or as mothers can be, I miss some things, some signals. So definitely be balanced.
No, that's a whole word. It's a whole word, because the four of us, but specifically the three of you, are not only teachers, you're also mothers. And what is that balance like? And I feel like, Ms. Foster, you definitely hit on that. I want to come back and talk a little bit more about that, and in connection to what your needs moving forward will be. I'm going to go over to the chat right now. Ty Coleman commented, Baltimore City teachers go the extra mile. I think that story should be told more. There are a lot of people pushing and pulling for the youth in this city. It makes me very proud to work beside you all. Asia Mackson says, that is true. The gas mask / balance, but so much easier said than done. Right. It's tough to see so much need and know that no matter what you do, it's never enough. As an empath, I never get that balance right. Edwin says, thanks for hosting this conversation and providing some healthy strategies on self-care during the pandemic school closure. It seems like teachers, students, and parents are always on duty as it relates to school responsibilities. We gave all of our time, pushed our hearts into overdrive to care for everyone all day, all night, all week long, all while dealing with a global emergency. What are some strategies that we can develop now based on what we have learned from this experience, so that in the coming school year, boundaries and expectations are more supportive of a healthy work-life balance for all students, parents, families, teachers, and administrators? Ms. Foster, I really want to come back to you on that, and I really want to talk to you, Ms. Forbes, because what I heard from both of you is that there is something that is needed, and what I want to know is not just what you need to do. What do you need from schools? What do you need from parents? What do you need from this technology system to support you? Do you need, for example, do you need specific boundaries set? Do you need to have less screen time? As this moves into the fall, what are your needs? And if you want to think about that more, Ms. Foster, I could go to Ms. Forbes first.
Oh, well, you can go to Ms. Forbes.
You ready?
For me, there are a number of things. First, for our parents to feel that they can trust us and let us know their vulnerabilities, because as a result of talking to my parents and them being open, then I was able to come in and assist. And as a result of being able to come and assist and guide them, then their students were able to, their children and their children, they're my students, excuse me, were able to come on. Secondly, as I think it is what do I want to say? Not a world issue, but a district issue. I think more in the city because we don't always have the resources that the county has with the dwindling tax base. But another issue is being able to provide internet services, be able to provide the digital tools that our children need. Too many of our students are at the poverty level and do not have, the digital devices to give them access to learning. Third is, I can't believe I'm saying this, but a little bit more professional development. And I'm really saying that because at the end of the day, you don't want one more meeting, but more professional development to teach teachers who are not as proficient how to navigate the new waters and to have a safe space to do it. This is new. And as I said before, greatness comes from darkness, through God. So, but we need to have the safe space. We need to have the empathy to help people and become a community so that we can elevate all of us. And another thing is to set a platform before school where we can come in and speak to our parents. Because one of the issues is it's hard to teach someone how to work a digital device digitally. You need that one-on-one, because if you don't know how to turn your screen on for me to show you how to do it, I really can't help you. So in this upcoming school year, especially being a pre-K, and I just think for the elementary level, at least to second or third, is being able to have scheduled times where you meet 2 to 3 parents using, the social distancing and show them how to use their devices so that they can assist their children in getting on so that we can then teach them. So if those couple of things happen, I think that it will be better. And I have to piggyback before letting it go. What Foster said, mindset is definitely, and someone asked us, what's your mindset about this? Do you like doing this? And the answer was no. No, I don't like doing it this way, but we have to adapt. And so the mindset, so now I have to change it. Forbes, people laugh at me, but we have dual conversations and I always say self, the other self is talking, we're going to have to adapt. You prefer to be in front of them, but you can't. So now what are we going to do? So once we change our mindset, then that allows growth to occur. And I'll stop with that.
Yes, and definitely got to piggyback off of Ms. Forbes. I definitely agree with everything she said. For me, in addition to what she said, it's just honesty and patience. First of all, honesty enough all around, from administration, where I can, we have a floor where I can be honest with you. We can't assume what's going on behind closed doors. We can't assume, what everybody's lifestyle is. So, that comes from, I have committed my time to teaching, but also due to these circumstances, things change if I do have a child. So am I supposed to, do away with my child as far as being a mother and commit to the times that I have as these allotted times as a teacher? No. It's being honest and being able to say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm going to have to conduct or change certain things around to accommodate, what's going on, and what's best for me and what's best for my student. Because what's best for me is going to allow me to show up for my student. I'm not going to say that, if these certain times, hey, I'm trying to help child be great, and you know, I have this certain child calling because these are the times that, you know, my student parent is not there and they need help.
Mm-hmm.
We have to accommodate. So it may not look like the way professionally or whatever that you may assume that it may be, because being a true teacher who's truly trying to help their student, things look a little different, especially with our people. Things look a little different because I'm not running and telling everything that's going on in my student's home.
Right.
You know, to be honest. Things that I feel like need some attention, yeah, it's my right. I'm going to do that if I feel like they need attention. Some things, no, I'm not. But it's just, to me, everyone, you know, no one can really tell me what this, you know, is speaking from teaching online, what it's going to look like. It's a little different, you know, and I hear both of you as far as like, you know, that balance and stuff. And, you know, I'm soaking all that in because I definitely need to do that. And I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on that. And that's a work in progress. But I will say it's a little different when you're dealing with young students who cannot determine, you know, cannot determine things day to day. Okay. They rely on their parents. They rely on their grandparents who's really parents. You know, it's a lot different. And, you know, and I would love, you know, it's hard to kind of turn a blind eye to that because, you know, it's, you know, you're up close. People are honest. Some people are honest. Sometimes, you know, knocking on that door and going to that door, you may see some things that you didn't want to see, but you know, it's hard. You know, it's hard because it's like, God, I saw it, and it's like, what can I do? You know, but I will say it's just honesty again and patience. Us working together to see what is best for us, what is best as teachers, what's best for us, and what is best for the students. Because, you know, I have students who turn in their work during the evening time because they really are not good with, you know, working computers or working technology during the day. And guess what? Mama is a single mother and she's working from 8 to 4 o'clock. So what do? I cut off my time at 4 o'clock. You know, she's trying to do what she need to do. Right. And it's like, okay, I'm going to extend. Okay, well, I know Mama comes on at 4 o'clock, so maybe I may reach Mama at 5:30. Hey, well, look, this is going to be your time. Or this is going to be, you know, this student's time to turn in their work and stuff like that, because I know they need additional help. Our children has, you know, you got to also include the disabilities that go in that. You got you got the students who are a little behind. So for a a student who can do all that, boom, 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 yeah, look, you know, you can turn in your work on time. But I'm just thinking about the students that, you know, need that additional help. And I'm not there to physically, you know, do that. So, you know, taking all of that in consideration and trying to look at this fall coming in as far as like really trying to teach students, you know, on grade level and bringing them to grade level for those who are behind grade level.
That's a challenge.
You know what I'm saying? It takes patience, honesty, and understanding. No, I don't think it's going to look one certain type of way. I don't care what anybody says. Being in this and involved in this, it doesn't look one certain type of way because everybody has something going on. And I just feel like if we're really servicing, like we say, our kids, you know what I'm saying? If I didn't want to, you know, if I didn't want to do that much, I'll go and try to work somewhere else in another city. but if I see a need, I want to be purposeful.
Sorry.
You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, just that understanding and just honesty, and that's from the top down, from all the way. But I'm talking about Baltimore City, you know, headquarters, all the way down from the principals, because sometimes they're getting, you know, heavy weights on them, and it may fall on further down. I mean, all the way. It needs to, you know, they need to be open.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you so much for that share. Like, people need to hear that, and they need to know about these unrealistic expectations and this additional work and this additional burden, and, you know, where the resources coming from. How is my time supposed to be split? A person in the chat, Adrian Maxton, says, I also think the microscope on racism right now, we really need to focus on the entire school system, kind of like what you were saying, Ms. Foster, from the top down, and the unrealistic expectations for teachers. So much of this is a result of systemic racism. You know, this hard and fast, the way that we look at grading, like not looking at parents as human, not even looking at teachers as full humans. We are a bit over our time. I just have 2 more questions, and I want to shoot the first one to Ms. Forbes, and then to Dr. Wilburn. Ms. Forbes, you were talking more about earlier about this aspect of all of these other things that you have in your life. You were talking about your daughter, that you're getting ready for. She's getting ready to graduate.
Yeah, so that was another, and as women, we wear many hats, but in this case, being a teacher and then being a parent. So it was a little bit disappointing for me. It was definitely disappointing for her. And I tried to see some things coming. And when you refer to the question, what was in our mind, and then I'll bring it back when COVID-19 happened, it was surreal to me. I heard the rumors like Foster said, but I didn't really think that it was that detrimental. You know, I heard it maybe like when we're on television and we're so bombarded with blacklists and hearing all these type of detrimental things, that I really didn't take it to heart. I didn't really think that it was, you know, happening. And so that left us, you know, unbalanced. In terms with my daughter, they missed a lot of the experience and that transition from childhood moving towards adulthood. And they had their own challenges that I had to help embrace her with, you know, being in the house. I don't think so much the texting and the video chatting was a problem. They're used to that, but not being able to come together, you know, after that, like school lends a lot of things. It's the social aspect as well as the social, emotional, developmental, and academic aspect. So not being able to go to the mall or go to the movie and connect that way occasionally, you know, it hurt. And this new way of trying to show them that, you know, they've done a great job in having these parades. And then as a parent, even though I work for the system, I felt like it could have been a little bit, if some more time had gone into it, it could have been done a little bit better. For example, in Virginia, with the celebration, what they did was to give the authentic feel of it. What they did was time every parent or every family. And so the principal or the superintendent or whoever the guest speaker is, or, you know, who's going to hold it to you, they were able to walk across the stage, you know, flip their hat into the air and have a little bit of that feel. And then you had 4 or 5 people of your family in an auditorium all to yourself, you know, being able to say, yay. Okay. And I thought that was more authentic than the virtual aspect of it, because, and this is just for me, so this is personal. I'm not taking, trying to demonize anybody, because all of us were pushed on this right at that moment. But just the visual of just going across the screen, hearing your name, it didn't cut it for me, and it didn't cut it for my child. I don't know about other people. While I appreciate the fact that they tried to do something, let's just say that it, I wish that it could have been a little bit more. And seeing some other districts and how they did it, I wish that we could have embraced that, because, and then they had the little photo session, and so it was more of a connection, the way that Virginia did it. And so when you are a leader, because teachers are leaders, you try, your heart is good. Sometimes you think it's going to work this way, and it doesn't. So I am not criticizing, but I feel that we need to come together with more platforms like this, having more time to get people's input so that we can try to make this experience and wholesome, authentic, human, and try to get back to, we're never going to get back to, I guess, normal, but a new normal of more connectivity, connecting than disconnect on, the internet. Because I find that when I'm finding with the children who are always on the internet, they don't know how to respond socially. They are not always as sympathetic or empathetic because it's surreal. It's a television, as versus being a part of the community in the whole and touching and feeling. And we just know, especially for the young ages, if you're not touched, then you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
From day one, it's studies and talking about the need to be touched, to be supported, to be coddled. And our children are not getting this now, with technology. Now here it is a pandemic or another challenge that is taking us away from touching, connecting. We're becoming apathetic.
Yeah,
sympathetic.
I think you bring up, I could easily talk about this for a whole nother hour, because you just bring up a whole nother aspect of this experience for me around the mental wellness of the youth, not being able to be just run around. I found that there was so many disciplinary things that I was able to diffuse just by letting
movement and motion, right? We're going outside.
Right, just go run. And then another thing that brings up in my thinking is around, a lot of times schools aren't just a place where they learn. Schools are a safe space.
Yes.
And there's a space where folks get meals. I know that there's several things happen where people could pick up food. I also learned that EBT, if you have a Baltimore City youth, and you get EBT, there's supposed to be an additional amount added. And if you don't get EBT, I think they're supposed to be issuing them so everybody will be able to have food. There's another aspect of it and I've thought about this, especially early on, youth where home is not a safe space, where they go to school to
that's a whole nother,
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yes.
So, because I'm working on an ed op with a colleague who wrote a book about sexual assault and sexual abuse in the Black community years ago, and I had wrote a chapter in her book, and she and I are doing a op-ed, is that what it's called, op-ed, about this very issue, because mandated reporters, the numbers have gone way down. But the number of severe cases of child abuse being seen in emergency rooms across the country has gone way up.
I can see it.
That lets us know that there's a lot more abuse going on, and then it's happening without mandated reporters knowing about it. So your severe cases are getting reported to the emergency rooms because, once a kid's arm is broke or something, crazy, it's like they gotta take them. But how much abuse is going on that's not severe enough to go to the hospital?
Right.
So this is gonna be a major problem when kids do come back to school, the amount of abuse that they've endured during this time when they've been, at home. And as a social worker, I'm devastated about it already. I can't even imagine what it's going to look like, when kids come back to school. And from that point, and I just want to make this quick point, Rasheem, from that point, I believe that we are going to be back in some form or another. It may not look exactly like it did before the pandemic, but I believe that adults, clear thinking adults across the board, recognize and realize kids have got to get back in school. There's no way that we can go into the fall with kids being in home. And I'm thinking that a lot of the school systems are going to do what most of the universities are doing. They may start a little bit early, and they're going to end at Thanksgiving and not come back until after the first of the year, because those are the months that they're predicting if the pandemic starts up again. So for college students, it's like once you go home to be with your family for Thanksgiving, don't come back.
And you know what? That's true, because my daughter is going to Drexel. And so she is losing the graduation experience. I mean, she really wants to embrace the college experience, and that's another issue. So she's like, am I going to be able to go? Am I going? And I'm like, I'm hoping. I don't know how they're going to be able to handle it. And I do know that with Drexel, they are not allowing them in this, if you're in a single dorm, you're not going to have a roommate. And then she just told me that when the Thanksgiving break is over, that you're not coming back until January. And I thought that was good thinking, because if it happens to spread, then you're already home and you're not endangering others. But I concur with you, Dr. Wilborn, that we do have to go back, because one of the issues for me being a pre-K teacher is, how do I teach a pre-K child when this is their first experience in school, navigating, keeping their attention? You know, we're all about student engagement. We're all about keeping them focused. And that was another challenge. You know, I didn't have to worry. When I'm in that classroom, I'm the boss in that classroom, and I'm establishing the rules and giving out consequences. It may take a little bit of time to get home life out and to let them know, I don't care what happens at home. I don't go to your mommy's house and tell her or your parents what to do. They're not going to come in and tell me what to do, or you're not going to tell me what to do. But when you are just coming, this is your first experience, and you don't know how to hold a pencil, how do I engage you? How do I start giving you structures in front of a computer? Because one of the things that I never had to happen was, like, when they were coming to class, they were sitting down eating breakfast, you know, like talking and eating. And I was flabbergasted. I didn't even know what to say. Like, I didn't even address it the first 2 times, because it was just like so foreign to me. And then I said, Self, we got to address this. So then I had to set new rules. Don't come, this is still classroom time. Don't come eating, you know, breakfast. I mean, it's one thing to take a swig of water and put it down and stay focused. Another thing is that I really had to get my teacher and my mama's voice on over the internet, because, you know, I saw somebody doing, you know, flip, you know, Carl will just get out of your seat anytime. And so then the quality of instruction is not as great as it is in front, because I can't get to you. You know, I can't give you that evil eye, if you know what I'm talking about, getting in your face and be, Johnny, I need you to sit down. And so that was another challenge, you know, that comes with dealing with the younger ones. And children are going to be themselves, you know, but they know, oh, folks can't get to me, and mommy is doing something, or parents are doing something they need to do, or they may need that break, you know, addressing your issues with domestic violence or abuse, you know, and all of that is, here we're home, and now parents are getting a taste of what it actually takes to be a teacher. You know, maybe when we come back, parents will be a little bit more supportive, those who are not, or critics, let me not say parents, critics, of what it takes to be a teacher. Now they see the full gamut of what we go through. And as one parent told me, like, oh, I only have 2, but in the classroom, we're dealing with multiple personalities. We're up there with 22, sometimes 30 or more, and we have to deal with all of that, navigate and be the social worker, be the mama, and then still keep our emotions in control. And so from a parent's perspective, when you're not used to having to deal with your child 24/7, then I don't condone it, but you see how you can get a little overwhelmed and you might lash out.
Yeah.
Normally you might not if you've had that breathing space or your own space that comes from being at work, and you're away from the child, because as Foster and all of us say, pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, I mean, they're raw energy.
Mm-hmm.
They are who they are. And the one thing that they are is that they are consistent. And so if we're not consistent with them, then we can get overwhelmed and things can go a little haywire. So I'm really looking forward to coming back to the classroom. And I do concur that I believe that they know the real need to come to the classroom. The question is, how do we do it safely and how do we do it effectively?
Right. I know I've heard talks of like an A/B schedule, if they were in person, to have it spaced out, and that there would be no more cafeteria lunch, like everyone would have to eat in their designated classrooms and things like that.
I've heard that rumor too. I'm just hoping that as a result of this happening, that we can now bridge and come together as a community more, not a whole lot of critics, and come together, as Foster said, to be patient, to be kind, to be considerate. And when we do make mistakes, because God knows we're not, for those who believe in Christ, we're not Jesus or whoever you be, we're not perfect. So we're going to make some mistakes. We have to be patient and we have to be forgiving. And then we have to be willing to go back to the table and work it out again. And when that doesn't work, after I scream, after we scream, then to be willing to come back to the table and to, do it again until we get it.
I think that this time will help to make people more compassionate. I'm going to go to the chat, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Wilburn to close us out, because I have you guys way over the time, because like I said, I can talk to you guys for a whole nother hour.
I have to say that this has been an enjoyable forum, and I thank you for inviting us, because it's informing people. It's also helping us to realize that sometimes we think we're in it alone, and we find out that when we come together, we're not. And, when more than one mind comes together, great things can come. So I'm grateful.
Agreed. I appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to go to the chat. You folks. One person says, agreed, and I don't want to go back and not be able to touch them for that very reason. Lakeisha Jordan says, Lakeisha she works with special needs youth. So her job is very tactile,
Yes.
Very much so. So she says, I also hope to get back in the classroom, because she's doing remote teaching of youth with special needs on a computer. I don't know how you do that, but that's what, I can't even write my
one thing that I did, that once I got back to, at first, the first 2 days, teaching wasn't teaching to me. It was like, because I didn't think of me being in front of the computer was my classroom. But then once the shift occurred, after the week, like, what can I do? And one thing that I've been thinking, if we don't, however it looks like, it's going to be some form of virtual teaching, whether it's A, B, something at home. But one thing that maybe she can think of is getting them at the beginning year, maybe giving them some tactile objects or a toolkit that are manipulatives that they can use. I started thinking like in math, what am I going to do? We were counting, was getting bored. And I was like, they eat Cheerios, they eat Fruit Loops. Okay, let's get a bag of Cheerio and Fruit Loops. And they began to be able to manipulate it and touch it, and that kept their attention. And then I was able to get some skills across. So for that person, maybe have her think, what are some common household items that in the house that she can use. One thing that I did was, I knew the dollar store was open because it was around my way. And so for some of my parents, I was like, look, can you do me a favor? If it's in, can you get this? Can you get some Play-Doh? And so the 9 parents that I had, they stepped up to the plate and, and got the things that they weren't in the house.
I feel like all of that are good recommendations. I think the thing that it makes me think about though is still puts a level of, I feel like the school should be supplying this, right? Like I think that they should have it, but I think the school should set up something where there's a pickup, where you pick up these things.
Yeah, that's what I was
One
saying.
day a
Like
week
in
or
the
something
beginning
like
of
that.
the year, moving forward, if we know that we're going to be out, then when it's parent night or opening the school up for teachers and parents to conference, to give out manipulative so that they can have these things at home. But then
Right.
also, as you were saying, you think it's the school responsibility to provide it, and I can concur with that. But then as a teacher and as a representative of Baltimore City, then I feel it's the parents' responsibility to make sure that these items are not damaged and lost, so that it can, so that they can be used.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. I think one of the things too that I would like, as an outsider, to a degree, like, because I'm not a teacher in the way that you folks are. I want teachers to come together. I want all of the teachers to band together and say what they need. If you are expecting us to be super people, I need super resources. I need super money. I need super information. I need to know it when you know it. And I think it's your right to ask for this. You are doing above and beyond. So
I concur with everything you said, but in doing that, then it becomes, we keep on building the layer. Then it needs to be not the district, then it needs to be the governor, then it needs to be the president, all of that, and making sure that the financial resources that are needed to propel our children into, we're well past the 21st century, 27th, 23rd, 24th, 25th, whatever that may be, is we have to come together bipartisan and be human. And it's also our businesses also, that it needs to be everyone engaged. It needs to be everyone not being me, myself, and I, and saying, hey, can I give a little bit? Can I sacrifice? I have $100, this is all I have, but can I sacrifice $5 for the cause? I really like the way that Obama did it. He raised his money, not with corporations, at least I believe that, I hope my facts are right, giving millions of dollars, but individuals giving 10 and 25, small amounts, but large amount of people gets the same amount of resources. So hopefully people are willing to do a little sacrifice and share a little bit. It doesn't take a lot.
Right. I'm gonna go to the chat again and then go to Dr. Wilburn. Lakeisha Jordan, the teacher who works with students with special needs, she said she was using dry beans.
Okay, awesome.
To do that. Asia says preach. Aubrey Burgess says good night, ladies. Great show. Glad I'm here. I'm gonna go over to Dr. Wilburn now. Dr. Wilburn, I want to ask you a bit about the self-care piece. One, because you are not only an educator, you're also a social worker, and I want to ask you about ways in which are some good tools for self-care. One of the things that Ms. Foster brought up was about the mindset. Could you talk about some self-care practices and a little bit more about that mindset piece around doing this work, and what we need to do to make sure that teachers are not only, they're already taking care, we don't have to remind them how or tell them to take care of everybody else, because they do that automatically, but give them some like tools and information on like how can they be reminded to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I believe that self-care is absolutely the most revolutionary thing a person can do, especially a Black person, especially a Black woman. I mean, if you want to be revolutionary, if you want to be a role model for women coming after you, and that's my whole thing now, because that's the phase of my life I'm in. Like, I want to model something different for the women coming behind me. And I want people to feel happy about taking a vacation. I want people to feel happy about doing things that look selfish or look like, oh, I think I'm better than everybody else. because these are the kinds of guilt things I think that African Americans and African American women, you know, deal with. It's like, oh, you can afford to take a vacation. Oh, you can afford to go get your nails done. You know, these kinds of things that people tell us. And the answer is yes, I can. And there is no guilt in that. We do so much to help other people, and we have to teach the people around us that it is okay to be self-preserving. It is okay to be beautiful and to take care of yourself in whatever ways you do. Like I like long baths. Like I like to do a lot of things that don't even cost that much money. Like I can do self-care on the cheap. Go get me some candles from the dollar store. Go give me a cheap bottle of wine. Run me some bath water. Put my speaker on and listen to music and just chill. So one of the things I think is that people have to figure out for themselves what are the things that help them to decompress, to just kind of relax and, you know, let it all go. Sometimes people are so busy. If you ask them, what do you do to take care of yourself, or what do you enjoy? They couldn't even tell you, because it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't remember the last time I did that. So at least know what your things are, and then just practice them. And then just make sure you educate the people around you that these are the things that you do. And also, not only are these the things that I do, but what are the things you like? What are the things you should be doing? Because that's the other piece of it too. I remember when I was in college, I came home and I didn't eat meat no more. I didn't eat beef and pork no more. Oh man, that was the biggest thing in my
Did
family.
they accuse you of acting funny?
Girl, everything. Girl, everything. You just can't even imagine all the things that. Well, no, I shouldn't say you can't imagine, because y'all know, y'all done had some of these transitional things in your own lives. Right. It's like, because when you go off to college, you come back with some stuff that
you too good now.
Right. So, but after a while it catches on, right? And then it becomes normal. And so we just have to keep doing that around self-care. The same things we did to pave the way for where we are now as educators and all of that, and going to school and all the things we've done as professional women, just keep doing it in the other areas and people will catch on. And you won't be acting funny no more. You know, it'll be the norm for the people in your circle around you. So that's my advice, Dr. Ra.
Awesome. A few more comments in the chat. Cameron said, say that. Nia Johnson said, in caring for yourself, you sometimes gives others permission to take care of themselves. Lakeisha Jordan says, yes, Dr. Wilburn. So I wanted, man, I always go over and there's so much more that I want to say. So I'm just going to stop and not say the next thing. But the thing that I do want to say is thank you three so much. Thank you for the work that you do out there in the world. Thank you for what you're doing for youth. Continue to find ways to take care of yourselves and take care of each other and have each other's back. I think that there is something that is unspoken about being a Black educator, and especially when you are a Black mother and an educator, that village mentality, where you want to make sure that you go to the person's house and make sure that they know how to use the technology, or you remember the mom doesn't get off till 4. So even though my time ends at 4, I'm gonna make time for this parent because she doesn't get off until this time. Or you understand that these students already have all of these other pressures on them. Why I'm gonna add another pressure of a deadline? Thank you for being human and staying human. Thank you for everyone in the chat who came and listened to the Counter Narrative Show. This episode on teaching in a crisis. Everyone have a good night. Thank you again.
You as well. Thank you.
Dr. Rasheem.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Glad to share the platform with you.